podium, please. Let us give him a big round of applause as he takes his seat. Honorable Nando is a Commissioner General of the Liberia Revenue Authority, appointed by President Manewia. Honorable Na is an experienced civil society actor and financial sector professional who has worked and advocated for improved governance system in post-conflict Liberia. He has over 25 years of experience in banking, non-governmental sector management, and is an avid promoter of technology as a means of getting things done. He previously served as program lead at the Carter Center. He co-founded and formerly served as the executive director of the Center for Transparency and Accountability, now a national chapter of Transparency International. We will also have another panelist from the Central Bank of Liberia joining us virtually, Dr. Musa Dukle. Dr. Musa Dukle obtained his Doctor of Philosophy in Economics from the University of Nairobi, where he also served as a lecturer. He joined the West African Monetary Agency, WAMA, in February 2013 as a senior economist. Through hard work and dedication, he rose to the ranks to become a principal economist at the Multilateral Surveillance Department at WAMA. He was appointed as Deputy Governor of Economic Policy in 2019 by President Weah. That is Dr. Dukle. He will join us as we proceed. Thank you. For now, we'll take our panel. Okay, we come back. We have another panelist, Mr. Tue from the Fiscal Arm. He will also be joining us virtually. So let us try to say something about him. Honorable Samuel Tue is the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, appointed by President George Manewia in 2018. He previously served as various institutions in the United States, among which is the U.S. Bank City Financial Auto. He led the economic consulting team at the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs to cause the agenda for transformation, the 5-year development plan of the government of President Eliot Wilson. Honorable Tue also provided program and policy advice and support at the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. He served as a lead economist of the National Millennium Compact Development Program, the country's team assembled to manage Liberia's access to United States Compact grants administered by the Millennium Challenge Corporation. While serving both as consultant at the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs and as a lead economist at the Compact team, Minister Tue had the opportunity to also consult with many NGOs and other organizations on economic matters, ranging from the natural resource management, agriculture, and many other development projects. He was also hired by UNESCO and the government of Liberia as a consultant across Liberia's technical vocational education and training TVET 5 years implementation plan. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel. Now, Okay, so to our panelists, we have talked, you've heard the presentation of our speaker. So you would like to give us your perspective as a tax administrator, the fiscal arm of government. You are close to the authorities for tax administration. We know you have implemented some reform gearing towards improving the tax system, revenue collection, and also trying to spur up our GDP growth. So we just want you to give us your perspective on the fiscal policy anchor as it relates to your area of taxation.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to the University of Liberia and to our esteemed presenter. You know, as we spoke about the crisis in the U.S., what came to mind, because we will have to put into context, you know, what we spoke about in a direct context. It brings me to think about, you know, some of the challenges that the economic management team faced after the transition. And I can say that much of that, there's a lot of resentment, you know, to the crisis that we got so deep into face. And obviously, because we have similarity in some of the, you know, the crisis, it meant that we had to bring into perspective both monetary and fiscal policy to get us where we are today. So I remember after the government came to power after the transition, and we all know that the government had a lot of challenges. Payment of salary, we had a lot of demonstrations linked to, you know, lack of economic or possibilities for citizens. We had issues regarding monetary concerns. I remember the 15 billion, the 25 billion. Well, I mean, it was a challenge for the economic market. So with that kind of crisis, and you can imagine we had to do much of what we did. There was a lot of people. I remember once I went to the Minister of Finance, pulled down, you know, and you know, it's interesting. He told me, you know, this is interesting. What are we doing? And he laughed. In fact, he saved my day because I was so distracted. Imagine you have to provide revenue to keep up most of the activities, and then you realize that the revenue is increasing. You have to think of ways to increase it. But then he said to me, there's something good. There is nothing economic that we're not doing. I can assure you that it's not a rebound. But it was just so, you know, abrupt in his response. And then I sat for some time and we sat there. I said, well, I think this. Because what is it that I'm not doing, you know, the revenue story? What is it that he's not doing? But I took solace in that. But I can say to you that from that point, there was a lot that the government had to do. The issue of the harmonization. When people speak to the issue of the harmonization, obviously you know that it's a reduction in or salaries of people, it impacts the disposable income. But at the same time, if we did not rationalize, you know, salaries such that, you know, salaries should be more predictive, It means we were threading the wrong fence, and somewhere down the road, we would have been in a deeper crisis. So the government has to be very decisive. I know when you spoke to a couple of your principals, you talked about things or delivery. So we have to be decisive despite, what people thought. We have to be online. There were other things that must have affected us also. And little do we talk about it, but audio. Even from a tax perspective, audio presence in Liberia was huge for the economy. So imagine someone that is contributing close to 5.5 million, annually. And when you look at the total impact, it was close to 800 million. All of a sudden, they were taking the two out of the system. So everybody were focused on the security aspect, but little they didn't know that there was an economic impact on the present here. Because obviously they were in fact when they left, they eroded our GST because obviously they went to hotels, they went to the buying power in the economy, we eroded our GST
Mr. Lawson. And everybody. Hi, everybody. Wonderful to start on this. Yes, I had an opportunity to see her presentation. I think it's wonderful. Let me say thanks to Rosie. I talked to Rosie. We want to help Liberia. University, my moderator, we have student, I remember working there with a professor, and I know the impact it have students. I don't know students are in the audience, but it's great to share a perspective of the United States financial system and wonderful remarks. Thank you, Rosie. Rosie spoke about subprime crisis, that led to the Great Recession, greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression of the 1930s. And America was always eating. And you think about the behavior that led to that. Excessive risk taking, prices were going up, people felt, and standards were low, and those were the risk factors. And I explained that you look back to Liberia and you think that that behavior also happened in Liberia. The answer to that question is yes. The financial system is fragile. People do not know that very little things can break the financial system. The crisis we have in Nigeria is called the high level of non-performing loans. What that means is that it has been in the last 10 years under the previous administration, continuing to our administration. We're trying to reverse that where they were easily from crime. We're able to think the financials were not strong, the fundamentals were not strong. So we see some of that in Nigeria with excessive loans. And when people default on loans, it's because part of the financial crisis that we had to deal with was to certain banks in the country. We haven't made public about some of these things, but we've been able to stabilize that. Especially working with banks to ensure we move towards more prudential and tight, credit tight, and this easily happening in the last 10 years where we saw elevated levels of non-performing loans because when the bank fails, in the same way we saw in the financial crisis in the United States, bank failure, insurance company collapses would lead to significant devastation of the economy. These are serious contagion effects. So we've worked to stabilize that. We haven't talked much about that. I know Thomas talked a little bit about some of the macro policies of the workplace, but we haven't talked much about what's happening in the bank sector. There's a significant challenge there to ensure that banks remain solvent and that people are able to take loans that they can afford to tackle the standards. The central bank is working extraordinarily to ensure that we don't face the kind of crisis that we saw in the United States, even though NPLs have been elevated in the past. But the news now is that under the central bank policies, we're ensuring that banks are lending soundly and the whole credit culture is getting better. So it's wonderful thing to talk about the financial situation in Liberia. Liberia today is in a much stronger macroeconomic situation than it was, 3 years ago. When we took over, we basically assumed that the fundamentals of the Nigerian economy were stronger. Little did we begin to realize that fundamentals are actually weak and that Nigeria was losing excessive foreign exchange. At the same time, we were putting more Nigerian dollars outside the banks. So that led to a combustible rise in inflation to a high at 31%. This was one of the highest price inflation in recent time. That led to significant political uncertainty, political crisis, and people. The thing about economics, I think the came up in most of these conversations is that, when the economy is down, people think, somebody is necessarily doing something wrong. Okay, well, the problem is that the wrong may have happened decades before or years before. The policymakers are left with no other choice but to find a way to resolve the crisis. The one Anglo American the subprime guy was that either lending, cost of either lending, it was not a mistake on the federal department, it was not a cost mistake by Bush administration. I mean, it was just a culture that that's what we extend at the beginning and just broke. Much the same way when you look at the Liberian crisis, people think, was there a fiscal policy mistake? Was there a monetary policy mistake? No, it's not just a single mistake that led to that. It's of cultural factors that lead to a point where crisis sets in. And so the whole notion that maybe the government did something wrong to move inflation to 30%, I think is wrong. And we just have to then use fiscal and monetary policy to reverse, the weaknesses and weaknesses in the fundamentals that we see in the economy. And we've done that reversal and protect us for the IMF program and for support of the international community. We now have both fiscal monetary policy well coordinated, they are anchored on fundamentals. Budget process is started. I don't believe that we're going to see a macroeconomic situation anywhere near what we saw recently. I mean, the real issue now is how do we open up like the economy? How do we create jobs? How do we, solve agriculture? How do we promote investment? This is where the last thing everyone's again with the things we're coming from the last it's important we did invite, companies, we did invite investors in the country, and to see the possibilities. We're working on structural programs. Some of the things that are holding Bureau's investment climate behind. It's not just the climate itself. For example, electricity, right? Electricity is still a challenge, and we're still wrestling with that challenge. Good news is we were able to reduce the tariff rate from 35 a kilowatt hour to around 23, 24 cents per kilowatt hour. But even that low in Liberia is still relatively high for many investors. We're talking about the CLSP transmission lines coming, bringing electricity from 41 to help us during the high season, which is the current period. Currently, there's a significant load shedding going on now. I know you're experiencing that, where the currents go off from time because the hydro is at its lowest potential now in the dry season. All these structural factors impact on the economy. So it's not just the fact that you have companies coming. The companies come, you want to look at the cost of doing business, right? They want to look at the macroeconomic. We solve the macro, and we're solving some of the structural electricity constraints. I think the real challenge for Liberia is to focus more on this money. And we're reaching out to American investors, to the passenger African Americans. We're in South Carolina to find a very small, delegations coming from states to see what Liberia has to offer. This is just the beginning of passenger, but it's a whole year event. We continue to push Liberia on the map. So the world knows that Liberia's story is not about war, not about Ebola, not about Corona. Liberia's story is about transformation, it's about economic transformation. The world needs to know that we have had one of the biggest collapses in inflation in the shortest period of time. And that we may not have two potential macro fiscal and monetary policy. They need to know that two things can happen in Liberia. We have a president who cares, who's delivering growth in a strong manner, who's doing wonderful things. That story needs to be told, rather than a story about our violence and war, how many people die, and then our Ebola. And then we're also doing a lot to fight against corruption. I know the U.S. Representative of the country spoke about corruption. And the governance challenge that we face this year is the year of governance. We try to improve all our governance work, national business, and we're going to turn the economy in that governance space. We know that. And those are my initial remarks. It's great to hear you presenting the University of Liberia.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, welcome. Welcome to the panel. I guess, were you able to get a copy of the presentation?
I really didn't get a copy of the prison. I only had the topic that I sent up supposed to speak to in respect to fighter influencing monetary policy.
Yes. Central banks are supposed to give a piece of the monetary policy, tailoring it to our monetary policy. You, as the head of economic policy there, we are looking at the Liberian monetary policy, the policy that is implemented now, to see that our money supply, our inflation rate is stable.
Okay, that's good.
You know, we have come from a crisis, from where we see our business activities slowing down, and I guess the central bank have taken some fiscal stance to get the economic rolling back. You can explain to us what we are doing currently.
Yeah, I think the topic I received was sort of broad, but it's good you try to narrow. Let me tell you this. Sorry, there's a little distraction because we have a board meeting ongoing. At the same moment that I have to speak on some of the monetary policy issues. Well, let me just say, Minister Twelve, I'm happy you're online. Thank you so much for highlighting some of the issues in relation to Central Bank. I also want to recognize Larry Boss, Donald Andrew, and Councilor 12, also 12, and then the other panelists there. Just to extend our apology that the CDR didn't know the time for this meeting. That's why we ready to get here on time. The communication received did not indicate the time and the venue. So that was some form of oversight. But then I was saying, I'm happy to be here today. The monetary policy of the central bank in the last 3 years, to some extent, has evolved with a lot of significant reform ongoing. By the time this government took over the central bank, when the monetary policy was confronted by several shocks. You had the Ebola that affected the economy, then you had the commodity shock that also impacted the economy factor. So there were some form of hidden monetary policy challenges that were not taken into consideration as a forward-looking monetary policy approach to be able to avert some of the major challenges, monetary policy challenges that confronted the government in the last 2-3 years. You can see that only expenditure alone in the economy, the remittance on the economy was amounted to about 500 billion every year. So that means only the factor will pay some exchange rate shock. That was not taken into consideration. Then you also had a central bank where the implemented at the time involved consistent intervention in the amount of around 30 to 40 million US dollars to keep the exchange rate stable. So the central bank didn't have that resources, foreign exchange resources to continue to intervene in the economy. And so you can see that was a free falling currency that resulted in free falling currency to the point where the currency depreciated to around 211 to 1. And so working along with our own stakeholder, the partner of the IMF, we have to design a more pragmatic monetary policy to be able to address the situation. So we have to institute monetary policy reform. Things like the Ministry of Finance was significantly involved into the process as well. So that monetary policy reform resulted in changing our monetary policy from extremely tight into interest rate-based policy targeting, with the idea of giving more value to the Liberian dollar, more wider use of the Liberian dollar. And to some extent, that will support currency switching to invest in the CDI instrument. So that monetary policy reform we instituted, spending about $40-50 million every year to intervene in the economy. We're spending less than that, about $7-8 million to keep our exchange rate stable. The impact of that was to see that still coming down from around 211 to around 150 relatively stable. When we instituted, that you can see ongoing. We also look at in terms of how can we intend to support financial inclusion so that we can take our financial inclusion rate from 36% to around 50% in about 3 years. Our financial inclusion strategy were endorsed by the cabinet around 2019 December. That was part of the IMF reform strategy for us to get budget support. And thanks to that reform, thanks to the cabinet led by At the time, Finance Minister played a very significant role in doing it. Just we endorse that financial inclusion strategy. And as a result of that, we can see that mobile money in the economy has increased. It increased from around 1 million to today we have more than 4 million subscribers. And our reform is to ensure that we continue to support the cashless economy. But you can see that in addition to that, we also look at our reserve requirement because we have to deal with two currencies in the economy. We have the Liberian dollar, the circulation service, and the US dollar. So how do we balance our reserve requirement strategy to ensure that we leave sufficient US dollar in the economy and to some extent we allow the Liberian dollar to be a currency of trust as a part of our de-dollarization strategy. This is because we have our high level of dollarization in the economy where almost 67% of the currency we have in the economy of dollarization to around 67%. Our strategy is to bring it down to 30%. And this is where coordination has come in. So thanks to the Minister of Finance again, where they highly supported our coordination strategy, where they're considering paying good proportion of the salary payment in Liberian dollar before 100%, but now you can see they increase it to around 20%, and they intend to gradually increase it to around 35%. Proportional salary payment is support our de-dollarization strategy. They also tend to the LRA as well in accommodating our de-dollarization approach. So all national strategy to ensure that gradually we allow Liberian dollar to be a currency of choice. This is consistent with the ECOWAS integration program that Liberia is a part of, and we're working towards that. But I was telling you, we have a lot of monetary policy challenges we've confronted with. Some of the monetary policy confronted with is it has to do with the available mobilization savings to be able to intermediate in terms of providing investment opportunity in the economy. At the moment, credit to GDP is less than 15%, and credit to agriculture and manufacturing sector combined is less than 1%. So you can see that it tells you there's a significant pressure on the economy in terms of using our reserve. One of people come to be able to facilitate or support some form of extreme stability in the economy. This is not good, that's what we're working towards, because able to increase productive credit to productive sectors, say agricultural manufacturing. Reduce the pressure on our assets and to force effort support the stability of our system. What the CBN is working towards to productive sector, but it is difficult. It's impossible with savings bank when there's deposit, we don't have long-term deposit in bank, so we don't have a bank to provide long-term lending. So that's a very serious challenge to our monetary policy operation. That's part of the significant achievement we've made over the short time. We also have excellent challenge confronting our monetary policy, and that has to do with the impact of the commodity, major commodity like major. In the presence of export can be attractive, that will be able to foreign exchange, and now foreign exchange to some extent, we have to reduce reduce pressure on the management of our exchange rate. And so that's also a very significant challenge. Once we look at the financial sector and for the banking sector perspective, the Minister of Finance of non-performing loans, it will be important to address that aspect because the non-performing loan is not just this regime, but non-performing loan is now only peculiar to Liberia. In Gambia, the non-performing loan was 17%, 18% in Sierra Leone when I was working for the ECOWAS program, you have a non-performing loan so high. But what we're doing as a central bank to deal with the non-performing loan is to work with the bank that is possible with non-performing loan. Interestingly, it's important to highlight most of the non-performing loan are in the non-productive sector. So the agriculture and manufacturing, they're into the trade sector. So they personal loan, then where you find non-performing loan. So you can see that it's because of the economic shock, the economic experience that led to the increased number of non-performing loan in the sector because businesses slow down, and the slowdown in businesses are then repayment. So Central Bank is working with the commercial bank to see how can we strategize, working on a strategy now to see how the non-performing loan can be reduced. Yes, the Minister said it right, the Minister of Finance said there's cautious lending, which encourages the bank to lend cautiously because if you have non-performing loan high, that can lead to a liquidity problem. So working on that to ensure that the bank will lend cautiously And you can see that within the last 3 years, the last 2 years since we entered the IMF program, if you measure the non-performing loan that compared to the non-performing loan before we entered the IMF program, that portion of the non-performing loan is very minimal compared to the non-performing loan when we entered the IMF program. So it tells you the central bank is working to see how do we reduce the non-performing loan. The other major challenge we are experiencing momentum.
Yes. The central
Can I just go to?
Dr. Boucle, can we
Yes.
hold you there for a little while? Just a little while.
Yeah.
Just a little while. Yes, our guest would be running to do a COVID test. We'll come back as we continue your presentation. We just want to get a feel of our private sector. We'll come back to, we'll take back the discussion and then we'll put it on the floor. Thank you so much for your presentation for now. We'll rejoin you.
So what time is it?
You are running to come. No, he's just presenting the private sector perspective, and then we will get back to you to continue your presentation. Because we just want to get a feel of it. We want to run for some COVID tests as we start. So we'll rejoin you. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Honorable Oswald, can you give us a feel where we know of the private sector? Yes. Just about just 10 minutes, I will come back to you. I will rejoin you from there. Yes. By 10 minutes, I will rejoin you from there. Just give let me see them and then we'll follow you from there. Okay. Okay. All right. So you are serving a diverse group of private sector actors that plays a significant role in the growth of the economy. As the economy would be driven by private sector growth, you are very essential. Your organization, your group is very essential to making sure that the grassroots are involved in economic growth. So what's your perspective on the presentation today? As we heard from the Minister of Finance, from the central bank, and from the tax administration that we have a shock in the withdrawal of ONDIS, and that we needed to support growth again. How is the Chamber of Commerce contributing to this growth, making sure that we have collective and inclusive growth, private sector driven? To you.
Thank you. President Nelson. Minister Square. General distinguished gender. The Chamber of Commerce Association with our businesses, we advocate on behalf of the businesses also try to see how we can sell our drug with the government, ensuring that there is a conducive business environment for investment. In fact, for the direct investment, being the investment they have in the country. We are all aware country's economic institutions have 5 issues. You can either encourage investment, you can discourage investment, you can stimulate the economy, or you can slow it. While businesses tend to make, ultimately is to make profit, but they want to operate in a conducive environment. So if you want to come to a country, the environment will not really be affected, and people can do business, policies to be fair, people's rights and the rules to be that everybody can understand. These rules are the monetary fiscal policy and also the rule of law, adhering to the rule of law. all the money, people want to go, right? All business people respect the law, to abide by the law. Especially when we know what the laws are. And the monetary fiscal policy, income backing different issues like high inflation, which can become a problem for what high inflation discourages investment and lending. And also for the individual business and private individual in Western getting. Because the money you have now, if you have $100 to buy this particular good, all of a sudden you need $300 to buy the same amount of good. So inflation will be that way, way that will affect the economy. But that is fiscal policy, government tax and spending policy. Tax citizen in order to fund government projects. The citizen includes the resident area of the jurisdiction, including the business. But to also be aware that high taxation, what can happen if the fiscal policy are tightened, the economy will contract. What happens? Will be reduced spending, but if you reduce tax at time, it will boost the district profit. When district people make more profit, they have additional money to what? Employ additional people, expand the business, and invest in research and development, and help the economy. So the monetary fiscal policy has a lot of impact. Economic policy of the government have a lot of impact. Business people, yes, they invest, they make profit, but if you want to know the business decision, to make business decision for a long period of time, you make business decision for 6 months, for 1 year, for 5 years. And right now we have the LEC problem. If you have made a business decision based upon LEC, electricity, you need a problem now. You have to require to alternative source of energy, which we all know is like your generator. And a fuel consumption and maintenance costs. That's additional and cost put on the business. And we're happy. No business will resolve the cost. We will always have the cost over the consumer. So, government policy over monetary have an effect on what happens. So we may at the end of the line. We pay higher prices for goods and services. We have a very, very tangible effect. So, but we also understand that fiscal policy is hard, it's tough to predict the future. Sometimes they do not expect, they be delayed. Sometimes it will be political pressure on delivering certain objectives. We cannot be very conducive. That we're going to withstand all these pressure. But that virtue of some person in businesses, they are yet to see not only to make part of the how they help the government inspecting the economy, in helping boost the government policy that geared towards stimulating the economy, moving the economy forward. We are happy to say that, especially with NRA, all NRA decisions can always reach out to business community, pass it on, but it's a different way. We are seeing that most time when government does not engage in the private sector, there's always an issue. There's always an issue. High taxes, high fees, and support of the movement, additional costs. Like I said, this is not a very cost. You pass it on. You have to pass it on. So if your goods is 50%, it comes at additional cost higher, it goes up to 35%. And that the consumers who are facing to get our cost. But the Chamber of Commerce there to stop Nigeria, to showcase Nigeria. The people businesses interested in investing in Nigeria. Because the private sector is the engine for the country. There's so much we have in this country. If we all work in a collaborative way to make it happen for the country. So it's not only we don't have a few days to attract for the direction of the we have a few days to make sure the businesses are already in the country. That the environment is conducive again to continue to be there. Because on employment, one business is using the economy, let's look at the person will be on a job. And we that you are those who are the multiply effect. One person that you are who is even employed, it depends on his big. So you say that one person is employed for 10 persons. I have a friend who said that true. That one person is employed for 20 persons. In our African context. So when that one person is on a job, 20 individuals. So the monetary system has an effect on all this. And I said, you know, somebody here to talk to government, to work with government to show that we can see all the things. I mean, you can talk about the foreign words, you think about the economy, the improvement, everything, but we know it. Many of us have been elected in the free fall right now. Let it in a situation in which they are ready in their need. They can't pay to the school, they are not able to pay the school fee. The rotation cost is high. I think that economy needs some work after to apply. And if this is something to assist in be the engine, I will bring that up.
Yeah, thank you. I see some people like trying to relax. Can you tell a little bit about ourselves as we will get ready to take questions? Yeah. Take a little bit of right, left and right. I believe, yeah. So we can be in the mood of asking all of the questions that we want to ask. Our policymakers. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we gave a recap of what we've heard so far from the monetary and fiscal policy stance. Then we'll be able to ask our panelists some questions, all of the questions that we have lined up today. From the fiscal side, we heard that there were a lot of challenges at the beginning, but they have done a lot of intervention and a lot of reforms. They have done harmonization, salary harmonization. With the withdrawal of OMIL, we know it created a lot of shock in the economy. They have done digitization to boost up tax collection and ease of tax payment. They have also tried to deal with some inefficiencies in tax collection. They have done some sensitization to make sure taxpayers are able to pay their taxes. They are also planning to increase revenue. But our question is increasing revenue at what expense? Anyway, the Minister of Finance and the tax collectors will answer that later on. And from the Chamber of Commerce, we heard that they are here to work with the government and that the fiscal and monetary policies, of course, the outcome of that policy have an effect on how they operate, on how jobs are created, on how businesses function, on the functionality of their businesses and effectiveness. But they are here to work with the government of Liberia. They are here to help in job creation and investment creation. So, back to you for your questions. So, our honorable roles and our panelists. We welcome questions now as she would prepare to take her leave, but she will answer your questions. Thank you. Oh, okay. Okay, so as our guest speaker would be leaving, she does not have the time now, so maybe she will just give us a practical comment, and then maybe any other questions, our monitoring and fiscal arms will be ready to respond to them effectively.
All your comments were extremely relevant. I'm impressed that this group can come together and talk about how, again, you can approach this from a very comprehensive view. There is not one lever. It's a set of policies, it's a set of procedures. It's a very strategic, as I mentioned before, a strategic and deliberate approach that one organization cannot do on their own. So I'm very, this group, I'm very, again, impressed with this university and of course this amazing country that I was able to participate. And please count on me as your champion back in the United States and beyond to do what I can do to support your efforts. Thank you very much.
We are ready for your questions. At a time, we'll take one from this side, one, and one from this side. They will answer, and then we'll go a second round and close the session.
Okay. Now, two mics. Who's talking about? Who's the first one? You're taking the start first. You want to be sensitive to gender equity in terms of the Q&A. Tell us your name and institution and direct the question. Or please hear a question.
Thank you. My name is Philip Young and I come from William University of Harvard. My concern is due to the tax piece. A couple of years back, if you made anything 70,000 dollars and below, you were exempt from paying taxes. At that point, $70,000 was $1,000. Today, if you made $1,000 per annum, you pay taxes because of inflation. So we carry less money home now than we're carrying back in 10 years ago. That affects the amount of money somebody talk about wiping up savings. That's what we're talking about savings. We carry less money home. We have limited savings, means limited liquidity at the banks, and no loans are going to businesses and other people. This is a strain on the economy. What is the LRA doing about this situation?
Thank you. My name is Dr. Benjamin Wade. I represent La Cosa. My question goes directly to Honorable Khan. At the latter part of your presentation, you mentioned leakages in the system. If I were a researcher, to ask you what specifically you meant by those leakages. What factors are responsible for them?
Let's take somebody from this part and And the first round of questions.
This, and see myself as student in Liberia. My question goes to Honorable Hack. You spoke on tax base and particular focus on the formal sector, looking at revenue mobilization. What's the plan that ERA has in terms of revenue mobilization from the formal sector? Because if you are looking at only bringing the formal sector, people in the formal sector are making more money than those businesses in the formal sector. So what's your plan?
Right? Good question, right? Give us hands for our student, please. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Hello?
This question one to you, right?
Let me respond. Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, I think it's an opportunity because the questions on taxes and the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce comments on tax rates, I think it's important to set the context clear here, and it's very important in national. The personal income tax table, the individual is correct. However, the effect, typically, the income tax table should be changed every year. Every year, we should change the personal income tax table. Every year. That's what happens in Ghana, that's what happens in many other countries, all right? So to reflect the current realities. We never changed the personal income tax table almost 2 decades. So that's your first structural problem there. So it is we now are trying to think about, and right now as I speak, I commission a study on personal income tax situation in Liberia. The exemption threshold has been eroded by the exchange rate negotiation. The government is not ending the government date. In 2011, the exchange rate was 100, I think 150, 150 to 1, somewhere around 75. 75, 73 to 1. That was the exchange rate and the current exemption threshold that is in the law. Today, or a year ago, the exchange rate went to 200. So the failure there is because for revenue purposes, don't run a government, we can't lose revenue, all right? We're not able to keep up with that kind of change. So move the tax level to such a point, it's almost saying that the government is going to collapse. You're not going to collect anything. So we have this difficult policy choice of running the government, paying government workers, rather than eroding the entire tax base because of the depreciation. So these are the challenges. So the questioner is right. He's right on the question that we need to raise the exemption threshold now. Currently, except people have before me a proposal to adjust the personal income tax level for the first time, I think since I don't know almost 2 decades. With that, we will bring that within the current exchange rate. Now, if we experience any greater depreciation again, then we'll talk about that. But we need to bring the personal income tax level, the exemption rate of 7,000 to the level of the exchange rate today, so that more people may not pay tax at the lower level. Currently, all right, the people who were not paying tax 5 years ago are paying tax because of exchange rate problem. We need to exempt them, but to exempt them also we need to study whether the government can afford that. The impact analysis done by the Minister of Finance is putting the money at around between $13 to $20 million the government will lose in revenue if we exempt. So, do we make that choice to say, look, anybody making above 100,000, so we can't to say if you're making 100,000 Nigerian dollars, you are not exempted, because that's the new threshold. So we move 70,000 to 100,000, 105,000. That means the government, the government will lose 14 to 15 million US dollars a year. That's the decision that the government will be making very soon. The technical study and all of the things are completed. So the caller is right. We don't want to debate with you on that point. We have every year, the Minister of Finance is supposed to issue a new BIP table. Every year, standard economy, the standard work. That's what we should be doing. And it's important also because we have a dual currency regime. When you have the Liberian dollar and you have the United States dollar at the same time, I think it's very important because the action ratios are very sensitive. So the good news to all of the government workers, all of the people, and here's the other thing, when you do something for the government workers, you have to do it for the entire private sector. This is where the challenge can be. So when you talk, you're not going to talk about 70,000 government workers. You're talking about all workers in the economy. And that's where the fiscal cost will get high. So the reason why the government in the last 2 decades has not moved the BIP table is because of revenue work. And then I want to speak more to I need to get for the other question, the second question, Trevor. But the first comment on tax rate. Let's say that, look, the real challenge we face right now is the challenge to make Liberian businesses viable. Let's face it, the changes economy is to focus on Liberian businesses. But let's understand what are the real challenges of Liberian businesses, what are the opportunities they have. The tax rate is not a challenge for the Liberian business. The rate of taxation. Maybe the rate of tax, the way they were paying the tax used to be the challenge. When we did the complete analysis in 2013, tax rate did not emerge as the binding as a constraint at all. In fact, tax rates are among the lowest for businesses. Businesses in Nigeria face the lowest tax rate to the extent that the IMF has given a study and they are pressuring me as minister and the government to increase rates. They are saying you are not, but too low. Liberia has the lowest rate, businesses pay the lowest tax rate in West Africa in Liberia. And I have been going back with the proposal to raise rates. You notice we never moved rates at all. So rates are another issue. Some of the issues that we found were the way businesses are paying the tax. Okay? Other issues are the administrative inefficiencies, which we call inefficiency tax. Take the free port of Monrovia, for example. Nigeria has one of the lowest tariffs in the world in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. Our tariff rate is low when you do the net average weighted tariff, like that comes low. The problem is there are bureaucratic bottlenecks that appear to impose prices, and so all those are included in the tax or quote unquote higher tax. No, it's the administrative efficiency, it's the size of ports, it's the size of ships that can burn at the free port of Monrovia. We're working right now with the APM terminal to ensure that the biggest ships are able to come to Liberia. Right now, 7-star ships cannot come to Liberia. Now, if because all those ships cannot come, smaller ships will charge more. And so it feels as though even though the tariff rate is low, the charges imposed by the smaller ship tend to make it appear as though the rates are high. So there are many operational difficulties at the people of Monrovia, many efficiency issues at the Liberian Revenue Authority, and the digitization, the payment of tax, easing the payment, all these things will reduce the payment tax burden. But the rates in Liberia are very low. Let's not confuse those things. The real challenge businesses is they are able to get credit. Banks do not want to lend businesses money. They need to work in a way to solve that problem. Association. The rubber people are looking for $10 to $15 million to bring $600 million in the country.
Yeah.
15 million, bring $600 million.
Minister Fred, can we just hold it right there? Hello. Thank you so much for that explanation. You know it should go on and on and on, but we can't have it that time. Thank you. So you may want to respond like the honorable man just respond to something.
Okay, so 2 questions. Let me go to the student who spoke to the issue of informality. Yeah, we are doing work around dealing with the issue of informality. And let me simplify, let me give you a picture. So at the Revenue Authority, we have the large tax, medium tax, and small tax division. Now, what we've been looking at strategically around all of the level of informality, there are a lot of high income, areas. Say for instance, if you are building a house, we all build houses here, like in other places where you go into the house, you take mortgage and stuff. So you can. So in the construction sector, for instance, if you're building a house, someone is laying your tile. That person laying your tile, depending on the house you're building, he charges you maybe $2,000. The guy that is doing the roof, he charges you $1,500. The plumber charges you $800. Now, what we realize, none of those people are in a tax man. They pay nothing. But there's someone who has a small shop or a store, because it's visible, it can be geographically located, we'll go after that person. So when I initially about extend the week, and some of the things we are doing to bring people into this, that's just one of the scenarios. So right now as I speak, we are doing a special project on building material stores, construction, and we'll be coming up with instruction on. And it covers several sectors. Look at what to take our revenue to billions, we're looking at a lot of strategic intervention that will deal with that. So the issue of informality, I can tell you, is a challenge, but we are doing something. Right now, I know the Ministry of Commerce is working with the World Bank, but also what our own ideas around some of this. So we tend to generate, because we also have a local country context. So I can tell you that informality is an issue. The issue of leakage. Somebody asked a question, from a research perspective. I guess that was an academic question. But maybe I need to put leakage in the context from a taxpayer perspective. It will vary across different logical. So say for instance, the issue of tax expenditure, the extent to which we gave, duties, and if you look at our budgetary allocation, if you look at, the base and how much we are giving in duty and different tax expenditure, we would say that is the leakage that would be or streamline such that provides both in terms of revenue. Smuggling will also be a leakage from the perspective that you have identified that it goes into the revenue base, because people who are supposed to, break through the goods to the proper channel using, the back door. So you will look at that in context. So maybe we will speak that, or if you're research, we can speak more to that. But we're looking at it from the context by which we are eroding the base in such a way that, those are things that will impact some of the things will impact the lack of or the limited female revenue around real property. Someone saying, I'm paying my real property, but my neighbor is not paying. How do we deal with all of that? So the immensity of the challenges we face, I agree. There are things that will fix, but they exist. So at the Revenue Authority, we are looking at all of it is trying to. But the issue of moving from informality to formality is a process that we are looking at, but we have to be innovative around, we got to be very innovative. So let me just give you one example, one last example. Right now we said to input. So what we are trying to do now is to corner the system. So it's possible that you might be, but we are now doing strategies that will something. So for instance, right now we've issued or regulation that everybody inputting in a country your business, you need to have tax clearance. It's possible that somebody has been importing, but the man brings maybe 10 containers. But if the collector at the port saw his tax clearance, and that tax clearance says he's in small, he's classified as a small business, and a small business brings 10 containers. So right there at that point, we will reclassify and do a new assessment because it didn't tax it. So we are doing a lot of interesting intervention to be able to make sure that people come into the net and we can limit and stabilize the base while we try to increase the base.
Thank you so much, Honorable Nam. We know the issue of monetary and fiscal policies have generated a lot of interest in this room, but we have to go because we are far into the next presentation. We are challenging the University of Liberia to take this discussion to another level where people will have opportunity to ask their questions and have interactions with all of these panelists here. So we take a final parting comment from Mr. Twe, Oscar Twe, and then from Mr. Twe.
Thank you. Again, as I said earlier,
Thank you. When you said Mr. Twe, sorry. I was saying,
okay, Oscar Twe. Chancellor Twe. Well, not Mr. Twe, Chancellor Twe, right?
thank you. As I said earlier, the Liberian Chamber of Commerce is there to collaborate with the government, move our economy forward. There are a lot of things that can be done. And we all can work together to correct some bottlenecks in the system, bureaucracy, red tape, and slow businesses. We know that the purchasing power of the average Liberian is declining. And that impacts on goods and services that will be delivered. If a businessman importing something, a commodity, and that commodity will stay on the shelf or in your warehouse for 1, 2, 3 months, and it's slowly moving, of course, you will cut down the importation. And when you won't buy that commodity, it's not available, or because a very few quantities are available, the price will go up. Supply and demand. You find goods disappearing from the market. Collecting taxes is good. Increasing the taxes, making bigger revenues, the IRA do a very wonderful job. But that goes hand in hand with the government spending plan. There are additional taxes and the other taxes are being collected. How are you spending? How you intend to spend? Because that impacts. Otherwise, you collect all the extra taxes. The fund, I still there, which I said it seems I think the economy is in free fall. Maybe that's not a correct statement, but the economy is struggling along. We all have to work together to correct it and speed it up in the interest of the people of Liberia. I thank you for the.
Honorable Twe, in the 30 seconds. Read your party statement. Honorable Twe, are you there? Okay. I think he's not there. So we just give ourselves a big hand of applause. Mr. Nam, Honorable Nam, do you have any parting 30 seconds to give a person?
Well, 30 seconds. I would just say, let's all pay taxes, and we always
Mr. Twe, your party statement, 30 seconds, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you again. I hope we can have more of these kinds of forums. Unfortunately, it's an intellectual and creative center of ideas, and I should have discussed. I look at the real story here is that we've been challenged in the last years. We've been challenged historically as a country to one, diversify our economy. We rely on rubber and coal and we ship all of our raw rubber out. I was saying earlier that the bankers are saying, I mean, rubber bankers are saying, if you give them $50 million, you'll bring $500 million to the economy. No bank has given them that money. That's the number one problem. Why, if such a return that is so excessive, $10 million use $500 million, why no bank has given their money? That's the problem we've been talking about, not necessarily about that. So I want to work with the Bankers Association with the Chamber of Commerce to see how we can get credit flowing to the center to that further price that we have value to rubber and we do more production. I think that's the future of Liberia. The government cannot be the center of the private sector. No way. You know, government can take more people in. You know, government wage bill move from 100 million and down to 290, 300 million. We have to stop that. We have to move to the private sector. As minister, as government, we do everything to work with the private sector to incentivize them to make sure that they get credit and make sure the business environment will be. I think that's where the path to is going. We already demonstrated that in the electricity cost. We brought it from 35 cents to 22 cents. We're trying to this year, we're working with the private sector to turn this country around, and let's hope for the best for the best in the coming years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. So we come to the end of this section on the presentation of fiscal and monetary policies. We should thank you for your contribution, for your patience, and for your interaction. So we give ourselves a big hand of applause.
Okay, please give our facilitator a very big applause.
Thank you very much, facilitator. I would like to spend the discussions as we heard on after the long day yesterday, the marathon yesterday, you might, if you have been sleeping, you might need a bit of a sugar rush. So in both of the halls and hall up here, there is a break, coffee, sweets, just to keep you up, just in case you want to catch a bite, you can catch a bite and return to the hall. Just punchy things for us to keep us up as we go through the discussion. At this time, we'd like to call our next facilitator who will be guiding us through the next section. After which we will do the city account for a very long time. She probably has, she's a mother to all. The university put her proud and loud. She's an expert in her field. She's well read. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call on Professor Eliot Wilson.
Thank you very much. Our next session, we'll be looking at the role of higher education in the sub-region, prospects, and challenges. Our principal presenter is somebody I'm told who does everything sharp. So you can expect that this next session will be sharp. And our presenter is no other than the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sierra Leone, Brigadier General Podesa, who is a surgeon specialist, a medical doctor, Surgeon General of the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces, Joint Medical Unit, 34 Military Hospital, also a graduate in the field of biological science from Uganda University. And he has served very diligently in the Republic of Sierra Leone. He is the former Deputy Vice Chancellor of the College of Medicine and Allied Health Sciences at the University of Sierra Leone. He has a master's degree in microbiology and medicine. He's had long years of teaching experience in his field. He served as senior lecturer in medical microbiology and infectious diseases. He's also served as associate professor of medical microbiology, College of Medicine and Allied Health Sciences, University of Sierra Leone, professor of microbiology and immunology at the College of Medicine and Allied Health Sciences. He is proud of his alma mater, the 7th-day Adventist Primary School in Board District, Sierra Leone. He has done a lot of research publications, and his professional services span a number of years. He has received a number of awards, including the All Walks of Life National Achievement Award, Military Officer of the Year 2009 Award, the Government of Sierra Leone Annual Award for Public Service, President's Award for Diligent Service, National Award Commander of the Order of the Rochelle in 2012, Service to West Africa Ebola Epidemic Award, University of Oxford, a Special National Ebola Award, Gold Medal. He's attended a number of conferences and workshops, authored a lot of professional papers, and our presenter is none other than Brigadier General Sa, who is in active service.
Good afternoon all. I want to start by thanking the administration of the University of Liberia for inviting us to this celebration and for giving me the opportunity to discuss the higher education in the sub-region, prospects and challenges. So within the next 15 to 20 minutes, I will attempt to look at part of the higher education where we started, where we are today, the challenges that we are facing, and what we can do to improve higher education in the sub-region. Higher education in Africa dates back to the Islamic institutions of the 9th and 10th centuries AD in Morocco and Egypt, respectively. And in West Africa, in the 12th century in Timbuktu. While the continent can claim an ancient tradition of academic excellence, traditional centers of higher learning, such as these, have all but disappeared. What African universities adopted during colonialism were Western models of academic organizations that did not take cognizance of the critical socio-economic context, political environment, and developmental needs of the countries, region, and the continent as a whole. In a 2013 report, the World Bank acknowledges that tertiary education is more than the capstone of the traditional education pyramid. It is a critical pillar of human development worldwide. In the West African sub-region, there is growing recognition of the potentially powerful role of tertiary education for economic growth and development. Education provides essential skills manpower for both the formal and informal sectors of the economy, provides the means of developing the knowledge, skills, and productive capacity of the labor force, and acts as a catalyst in encouraging modern attitudes and aspiration. In Africa, tertiary education plays a critical role in capacity building and professional training in support of all the sustainable development goals. It is therefore imperative that countries in the sub-region rely on tertiary education to make a significant contribution to economic growth and competitiveness, which by implication require improvement in quality of teaching, learning programs, and its academic institutions. However, there is also a growing call from employers of graduates of higher education institutions that the latter are ill-prepared and or poorly tutored for the workplace, lacking especially the so-called soft skills such as critical thinking and communication skills, and 21st century literacies of technology and information literacy to perform effectively in the workplace. Research in higher education dictates that a new range of competencies in technology and innovation will be needed to meet the modern day demands. This, no doubt, challenges higher educational institutions to adjust their program structure, curricula, teaching and learning methods to adapt to these new demands. In recognition of these challenges, greater attention should be focused on quality assurance as a critical factor in ensuring educational relevance. The new challenges facing our higher educational institutions underpin the significance of establishing, among other things, robust quality assurance systems as necessary instruments for addressing them, together with infusing in them a culture of innovation and an out-of-the-box thinking mindset. Let's talk briefly about the challenges facing higher education in West Africa. A number of factors are attributable to the growing challenges facing higher education in Africa. Paul Celiza, the noted Malawian scholar and highly higher educational leader, and other scholars have listed a number of challenges facing higher education institutions today, including but not restricted to retention of outmoded colonial educational policies, poor infrastructure, outdated curricula, poor national economic policies, out-fashioned teaching and learning materials, techniques and technologies, mismatch between knowledge and skills, politicized academic leadership, uncertain political atmosphere, for example, the recent coups in Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso, and challenges posed by the environment. All of these lead the sub-region to be very vulnerable to both internal and external shocks. Let's talk about inclusive education. That is what we need, and that is the way forward. Higher education in the sub-region together requires the inclusion of all voices, ideas, regardless of class, religion, ability, ethnicity, and sex. Promoting inclusive education means of the current or historically marginalized populations, ensuring that the academy speaks to and with people and just about them, enabling classrooms to be spaces in which all voices are heard and valued, and where pedagogies are responsive to all learning styles, and creating faculties that recruit and promote staff fairly and inclusively. Knowledge production and publication are also critical in guaranteeing space for all to contribute to learning. To facilitate more inclusive discussions at the university level, there is need to interrogate how knowledge on West Africa is produced, published, and consumed. Currently, far more literature on the sub-region is produced by non-Africans than by those based in the region. In the absence of voices from the region, scholarly discussions become unidirectional and skewed. This must change. Only. The sub-region faces a dramatic increase in student enrollment in higher education institutions, which has not been matched by public funding. As Celisa pointed out, there are too few institutions to match the explosive growth in student enrollment. For example, in 2015, there were only 1,639 institutions continent-wide for over 12.2 million students. Effectively, public expenditure per student has also declined considerably, and this has inevitably led to deterioration in quality. Other daunting funding challenges facing higher education in West Africa include the scarcity of credentialed and professional faculty, the inability of institutions to build new and maintain current infrastructure for a more conducive learning environment. Consequently, reduction in public expenditure and lack of prioritization of higher education as the engine of development continue to promote ineffectiveness and inefficiencies in West Africa. Alternative funding, especially for state-owned institutions, which are in the majority, needs to be sourced. That's why I would like to pause and really say a big thank you to the University of Liberia for thinking outside the box. Because yesterday when the president was giving his statement, he said something about trying to establish what about the outlets, gas station, supermarkets. So I think that is the way to go. Thank you very much, sir. Let's talk about research. The research outputs from African universities in general and West Africa in particular is very low. Attributed reasons include a lack of research experienced faculty, decades of brain drain, lecturers' heavy teaching load, moonlighting by faculty, and a lack of research sources, such as library facilities, information and communication technology infrastructure, and well-equipped laboratories. According to the global publishing giant, Elsevier, it says that less than 1% of the world's research comes from Africa. The relevance of the research carried out is also questionable. Most faculty undertake research for personal gain, with the aim of publishing in internationally referenced journals for promotion purposes only. The chosen topics are also often not appropriate to national development. Most of the research is externally funded and being determined by the funders. The topics may not be of direct relevance to national development. A good number of those addressing national issues are undertaken in consultancies, which typically embargo the use and publication of data and results by the individual consultants. Additionally, most faculty do not engage in collaborative research, which leads to few insufficient multidisciplinary perspectives, which are essential for tackling development problems. However, the same Elsevier study found that there was an impressive climb in knowledge production in Africa, over 38% from 2012 to 2016, the highest increase of any region, the period in which Ebola raged in the sub-region. Would this be the Ebola factor? Access to research publications comprises another challenge. Research results at institutions tend to end up on their university library shelves in thesis and dissertation, or advanced research journals, which are not available to or understood by policymakers or the community. There is also a dearth of African-based research journals. The South African-based journal platform, African Journal Online, indexed only 556 journals, with only one from Sierra Leone and none from Liberia. The vast majority of journals are often in print, as they have minimal circulation, even in country, and are not financially sustainable because of the lack of institutional support. Let's talk briefly about quality assurance in the sub-region. Quality assurance in higher education is a relatively new phenomenon in West African universities. In 2007, only 16 out of 52 countries in sub-Saharan Africa had national quality assurance agencies, most of them recently set up. The agencies have been created mainly to regulate the development of higher education provision, especially by the private sector, rather than ensuring accountability or improving quality. It is not surprising that these units are only emerging now in higher educational institutions in the sub-region. In Sierra Leone, it is safe to say that only the University of Sierra Leone and a private institution, the University of Makeni, have functional offices, each set up about 2 years ago, although the other higher institutions are discussing the issue. The main challenges facing quality assurance in Africa are the dearth of adequately trained professional staff in the National Quality Assurance Agency, lack of knowledge about the related process amongst the staff in the universities, resistance from faculty to get fully engaged in a very time-consuming process of data collection and processing, and lack of funds to establish quality assurance systems in the institutions. Sensitization, capacity building, and funding are thus the main issues that need to be addressed in promoting quality assurance. Having outlined some of the pressing problems facing higher education institutions in West Africa, I will now turn my attention to suggested ways of meeting them, addressing both the familiar answers, but also those a few points aimed at provoking introspection at the level of campus leaders, funders, and other stakeholders, so as to stimulate collective action that will bring about transformational change in our institutions and wider community. It is hoped that in doing so, we will re-examine and try to find answers to two fundamental questions. Namely, what is our reason for being? And secondly, how best can we serve the current and future needs of our multiple stakeholders? What are the prospects of higher education in West Africa? The first one is we have to reposition the role of higher educational institutions. The new economic growth in Africa and its integration to the global economy, the acceleration of technology and new production methods have demanded highly trained personnel to keep the momentum of the economy. The role of higher education institutions in knowledge production is therefore recognized as one of the most important means of knowledge economy in the 21st century. Coined in the 1960s, the term knowledge economy, which refers to the shift away from the traditional definition of economy, that is manufacturing, agriculture, etc., to one in which knowledge of production and use are key. For example, data are produced and shared in volumes these days, and one can extract chunks from them to make some meaningful conclusions out of them. From a 2013 World Bank report, it was cited that tertiary educational institutions support knowledge-driven economic growth strategies and poverty reduction by three methods. One, training a qualified and adaptable labor force, including high-level scientists, professionals, technicians, teachers in basic and secondary education. And the second one is generating new knowledge, and thirdly, building the capacity to access existing stores of global knowledge and to adapt that knowledge to local use. But can we in the sub-region truly see we do this and do them well? With our traditional modes of learning that de-emphasize critical thinking and focus more on lower level Bloom's taxonomy, that is record description, rather than the analytical or creation stage, we also ought to ask ourselves to what degree are our products workforce ready and adaptable. Those graduates that we certify as worthy to receive the degrees we confer on them. Higher educational institutions would have failed in their mission when our graduates cannot function in the work environment that require these abilities that are critical in knowledge economies. If we are doing these, then we can safely and gladly say our institutions are 21st century compliant. Universities in the sub-region ought to continue to reposition their role as the mainstay and engines of economic growth and development. Development partners such as the World Bank have also changed their development policies, which now favor higher education institutions on the continent. It can therefore be argued that as knowledge becomes central to the economy, so too will higher education institutions. National governments in Africa generally and in West Africa particularly have started to increase the amount of public funding allocated to higher education. The share of higher education in public expenditure on education in 1990, on a study made on 39 African countries, show a double increase of 21.2% as compared to the 1970s. On average, sub-Saharan African countries spent 18.2% of government budget on education, 20% of which went to higher education in 2018, according to the World Bank. Various higher education reforms underway relate to finance, policy and strategy, management and governance, research and development, leadership and autonomy, all made with a view to make the higher education sector integral to national and regional economic growth and development. Thus, universities are today assuming their role as key stakeholders in economic growth and development of the African nation. However, preparing for knowledge economies presupposes massive investments in technology infrastructure, which at the moment faces anemic growth in African institutions. The second one is promoting collaboration between business, industry, and academic institutions. In the sub-region, collaboration and building synergies between universities on the one hand and business and industry on the other is slowly on the rise. Strategic public-private academic partnerships are seen as the way forward to address the multiple challenges confronting higher education. Investments from the private sector in higher education is also on the rise, but governance framework conducive to excellence, providing reasonable financial autonomy and enhanced accountability of the institutions and the governing body are ensured. Such partnership inherently can be decentralized institutional systems that promote evolution in the administration of resources, promotes the use of management information systems, and less capacity in administration, the use of resources and communication of results. The third thing is realigning the relevance of higher education in the market. Public-funded institutions alone will never meet the huge demand for higher education. Private and cross-border higher education institutions, which already operate in significant numbers in Africa, should be encouraged because these can be beneficial in many ways. However, many of them tend to be profit motivated and sometimes offer poor quality education. So they therefore need to be regulated and quality controlled. Realignment of higher education's relevance to new demands from the private sector became necessary on the eve of the millennium in order to respond to changes in the production and employment markets. Gradual expansion of the private sector, the coming of international companies and foreign direct investment pose additional roles on higher education institutions to be responsive not only to governments but also to the new demands from the private sector. The introduction of private sector into higher education is creating some sort of division of roles between public and private higher education institutions. On the one hand, public institutions focusing on science and technology, research and development are establishing more campuses in rural areas and focusing on graduate programs. On the other, private institutions are establishing themselves in urban areas, focusing more on humanities and social sciences, and mainly undertaking undergraduate programs. Although in Sierra Leone, the landscape is gradually changing, private institutions tend to target and the niche and more multidisciplinary areas of health, development, and technology that the more established institutions, the public institutions, are neglected, and we are struggling to catch up with them. Along with the idea of expanding access, however, concerns over equity and quality of higher education provision is becoming a major concern of higher education stakeholders and policymakers. The role of higher education accreditation bodies therefore need to be strengthened, and that more synergies between them, government and private sector and higher education institutions themselves needs to be established. And the fourth one, the final one, is the knowledge to skill base. Another critical prospect for higher education is the introduction and or reintroduction of curricula that emphasize skill-based education, technical and vocational education. National governments and development partners now see the need to educate and train the young people for now, for the future, and for change. What is required is a process that can produce a relevant and agile workforce, which is flexible and responsive enough not only to recognize the need for change, but also to anticipate and contribute to the process with innovative and progressive ideas. There is an increasing need for learners to have a range of transferable academic and vocational skills in order to operate independently and autonomously. Discussions on the need to teach students how to learn have been going on for decades. So the requirements to teach the subject-based national curriculum along with the traditional methods means it has so far not been achieved. Measures on how to balance these options need careful thought and action. In conclusion, higher education in West Africa needs more than just tinkering on the margins with processes and programs. It needs innovative thinking for solving problems, responsiveness to local, regional, and global concerns, alternate sources of funds to power the technological and infrastructural development that drives many of the needed changes, shifting from the ivory tower to what I refer to as bamboo tower mindset. Future education, that is what we want education to be, for that of future education, and the practical application and key to the future of Africa. Future education must continue to change as education has always changed to meet the needs of businesses and industry. A strong economy depends on our region's educational system ability to provide a workforce to sustain our current and future economy. It is evident that a certain amount of future casting of educational needs will become more important as the student population and their needs and mobility increase. And renewable financial resources from traditional sources increase. Some regions' collective preparedness for these challenges is significant for West Africa. Thank you.
Let's give a big round of applause to our presenter, Professor Dr. Brigadier General Fodisa, who has provided questions to ponder, especially as we look forward to improving our educational systems. First one, what is our reason for being? How best can higher education serve the needs of our multiple stakeholders? And how can we also include quality assurance in our educational institutions. I told you Professor Starr was a sharp person, and so we can expect to have a sharp panel discussion. To tell you how sharp it's going to be, a few months ago I was in Sierra Leone and was trying to make an appointment to get an interview with Professor Starr. I walked into his office, explained my mission, and he said, "Sit down, let's do the interview." If I had gone unprepared, I would have been embarrassed. But our panel is looking at the role of higher education in the sub-region, prospects and challenges. To join Professor Starr on the podium are two persons who are in our midst. The other two will be joining us by Zoom, and we hope that the technology we rely on can serve our purpose. The first panelist is Dr. Eliot Wilson, who is the president of the William V.S. Tubman University in Harper, Maryland County. He's come all the way, over 500 miles to come and join us. We're grateful. The second person is Dr. Alvin Edward, who is joining us from the AME Episcopal setting. Dr. Wilson received a bachelor's degree in philosophy from the St. Paul Seminary College in Banga, Liberia. He also holds a master's in philosophy from the Boston College, Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. And his PhD was completed with a dissertation entitled Community and Morality in African Thought, a critique of Prasad Temple's Bantu philosophy. He's a member of several professional organizations, locally and internationally, and he served very briefly at the University of Liberia in the Department of Philosophy, where we were privileged to get to know him, and is currently the president of the Tubman University. Dr. Alvin Edward holds a Master of Science degree in Project Management, the MBA in Management from the University of Liberia, a Master's in Theology, and he's called to ministry in 1998. He has been serving as President Board of Directors of the Liberia Annual Conference of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Administrative Assistant to the bishops assigned to the 14th Episcopal District. Reverend Arthur in public service has served his country very well as Deputy National Authorizing Officer of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs, Assistant Minister for External Resources and Debt Management, as well as serving the economic community of West African states. He's represented Liberia at various bilateral meetings for the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, International Finance Corporation, and the African Development Bank, among others. Our other two panelists, one is Professor Olusola Bandele Oyewale. The other is Professor Adepola Ikwamu, who is the Executive Secretary of the Regional Universities for Capacity Building in Agriculture, Root Forum, an institution that has devoted itself to training African professors in African universities, tapping on resources that are available to us in the region. He's been serving master's and PhD students who are working across Africa. His position as Executive Secretary of Group Forum, he held since 2004. He's somebody who keeps us at the University of Liberia on our toes, and I'm sure he does the same thing with other universities around the continent, because he sees to the well-being of all of our students. And I dare say, in my capacity as Vice President for Planning and Institutional Development, responsible for partnerships, our faculty in training outside of the university has increased almost 75% due to the involvement of our university with Group Forum. For the purpose of our panel, presentations will be restricted to 5 minutes each, to make sure that we keep the time, and then we'll take questions and answers for the floor. So please prepare yourselves. We expect this to be a very robust session, because it's delving into the actual purpose for which we are here. Thank you. We'll start off with Professor Eliot Wilson from the WVS Tubman University in Harlem. The floor starts.
Let me begin by thanking Dr. Alvin Edward for raising this occasion. Professor, I used some of your books. I was trying to thank Dr. Santi for being here, for raising this occasion, for bringing us the strong message he brought us the other day. As a young professor at Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, I use a lot of his books as reading material for my students in African American studies and race studies. You heard about our critical race theory thing. We started a long, long time ago. And for that, some of us got into trouble. We were threatened not to get tenure. But luckily, there were people who understood what Asante and the rest of the young people there were talking about. Let me get to our issue here. And I want to thank our brother from Sierra Leone for that warm message. It described in detail what we do in the university and the challenges we face. We face too many challenges. And I thank the president of the university for inviting him here. Professor Nelson, thank you for bringing him to us. It was a good message. You and I stand where Dr. Asante said you stand. He says the University of Liberia stands at the front step of progress and development. And if you fail, all of us will fail. So I wish you all the best. I see a lot of young people around you. When I was at the university, 81 to 89, most of the people were old. And we, the young people, had no say. I see a lot of young people coming up here doing the things the older folks like me used to do. We were pushed backwards. and you are bringing them forward. They are the future. So when I see it, I feel good. We need more young people to come forward, because when we step aside, it will be their time. I will make it short. We do two things in the university, only two. We create knowledge, and then we share that knowledge with students and the public. That's what we do. But it has these different facets. In creating knowledge, research is necessary. Here in Liberia, the funding for research is nil and zilch. There is no money for research in our universities. They give us money to share knowledge, but how do you create that knowledge? So we have to go back to Europe and America to get the books. How do you get the books here? It costs a lot of money. It's cheaper to do research here, create the books here, and pass them on to our students. It'd be cheaper. But if you have to bring them in, it costs a lot. Sometimes the books will be stopped at the Freeport or the airport at Rappersfield, and you will never see the books again. Never. You can go back there with all your duty-free. It's for naught. Nobody's going to speak to you. Everybody wants something from you before they give you your own property. And then after 6 to 7 months, the books disappear completely. Whom do you cry to? Somebody in here should be able to talk about that issue somewhere. You see, I live in Harper. Nobody hears my voice. I'm way in Harper. I don't have a microphone there. All I have around these young people who think the political culture of today should be transferred to the university. You see the legislature where the people go and they insult one another on the floor. Lack of civility is passed on to the students. And when you talk about it, they say, oh, forget it, they're children. No, they're disrupting what we were hired to do. We're supposed to be sharing knowledge. So we need some teeth, some claws to work. If we can't enforce our will, our rules, then we have no value in the university. If the students are the president, that's what you hear about demonstrations all the time. Rather than go to class, they want to be politicians. They join political parties and they think their ideology should prevail in the university. They see the university president as a stooge of the president of Liberia. And they can't even pronounce his name. They call him John. So, yeah. I mean, where? Your president's name, just pronounce it. It's George. It's not John. And as president, I'm not supposed to say that to them. The chancellor was talking about logic, critical thinking, and communication skills. We need to go back to basics. You will say he's a trained philosopher. All my degrees are in philosophy, yeah. But I wouldn't be this way had I not done philosophy. Because where I grew up, nobody spoke proper English. I grew up among Firestone tappers. And I spoke the way they spoke. I'm not going, I'm not coming. That's not English. So we should begin to go back to the basics. Simple, elementary logic. I'm not talking about complicated, sentential, symbolic logic. Basic logic. I'm not talking about Walter Togo, Alan. Not that kind of logic. We've refined it so that young people can understand it, appreciate it, and use it. That's where we need to go. But my thing here is that those who support public education should consider seriously supporting research. Imagine as old as I am, I can only boast of 2 books I've completed. I'm writing a 3rd book, I can't complete it. Because the resources aren't here. We don't have a single library in this country where anybody can go and get something. I have to go online, where the internet is always challenging. And sometimes you have to pay a lot. We worry our professors about doing research. And then when they bring the little thing, you say, okay, you want to do research, we're ready to go to the Sapo forest to look at this and this and this. We're going to stay there for 6 weeks. How are you going to support us? Then I don't have money for that. I have payroll. Payroll doesn't do research. I wish the other big people were listening. Payroll does not do research. It's useless to what I do. It doesn't help me complete my work. I need to do research, my teachers need to do research, and the basis upon which we promote them is that they do research, they teach, and they do community service. 3 prongs. Teach, do research, community service. But they can't do research because there's no support. The University of Liberia is at the doorstep, the front step of progress and development. It sits, I'm quoting Dr. Asante, University of Liberia sits at the front steps of progress. So the university must lead. Mary Antoinette Brown Sherman, small woman with a sharp voice, made it possible for some of us to leave this country. She forced the Fulbright Foundation to send us. She took the lead. Dr. Nelson, you will take the lead and we will force you. The University of Liberia must take the lead. We will follow. But if you can't lead, as the young people say, get out of the way. If you can't lead, you must lead. You must speak for all of us, not just for the University of Liberia. We have the mushrooming of colleges and universities in the country. Who's teaching in those schools? The war ended how many years ago? How many PhDs have we created? The war ended more than 10 years ago. How many PhDs has this government given us? Those are the people who should be in our classrooms. The master's degree holders, sorry, I'm not putting you down. They're supposed to support the faculty who are doctors, who have their terminal degrees. So what we're doing now, we're hiring all these masters, the people who are supposed to be getting ready to leave this country or go somewhere else and get their doctorate degree so they can come after us. We're not sending them. We're pushing them into classrooms across the country. Moonlighting. I sit in Harper and I hear some young people die in this town. Why? Because they go from school to school to school to school. They don't know that the money they're getting is coming at a cost to them. Premature death. You hear your brother and friend is driving home and suddenly he pulls to the side of the road because he's having a heart attack. Where was he coming from? He was coming from his third college teaching. That needs to end. That needs to end. That's why our brother here was talking about. All those things he listed. They're challenges, but they're not insurmountable. They're not insurmountable. Take the percentage of the national budget that is assigned to higher education in this country and say we will add just 2% of that money for research, 2%. And research will include sending people to get their doctorates. And when they come back, take me at Tubman University. I rely on Nigeria, Ghana, and Sierra Leone for teachers. 62% of my teachers are foreign. We don't have all the colleges there to moonlight at. So Liberians don't come there. They want to moonlight. And when you hire them after one semester, they pretend they're sick, they come to Monrovia, and you keep them on payroll for one semester, and then they say, sorry, I can't come back, I got another job. And then my students say, you see, he doesn't have teachers. And you hear it here. So let's do something about research. It's not expensive. It can cost a lot if you don't invest in research. You keep buying books, you keep buying books forever. All these bright young people coming here speaking big book, they'll send them to school, let them get their PhDs. Thank you.
This is to the heart of our matter here, and I'm sure a lot of us here can relate to the comments from Dr. Eliot Wilson. Our next speaker, do we have Dr. Ekwemo on? Do we have him on? Dr. Ekwemo, are you there? Okay, while we wait for our technicians to check, we'd like to call to the podium Professor Dr. Alvin Edward for his brief comments.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I want to thank Dr. Nelson and his team at the University of Liberia for organizing this program, this conference, which is quite timely. I want to also thank Professor Fulisa from the University of Liberia, Dr. Eliot Wilson from the University for further opening our eyes to what we have. I recognize Dr. Ruja Otto in the Continental University, who is also here, and I think each and every one of you. You see, the first two speakers, Professor Starr, Professor Wilson, they virtually say we have a problem not only in our country, but it's a regional problem. We ought to realize that the purpose, the fundamental purpose of higher education is to spread the development of our society through the development of adequate human resources. No society can be developed without adequate human resources. We get to share knowledge that brings solutions to societal problems. I read that it was in 1927 when higher education institutions began to spring forth. And thereafter, other higher institutions began to form, like the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, the University of Ghana, and several other universities. And then eventually we had Liberian College, the University of Liberia came upon the Continental University, and several other universities have emerged since then. But all these higher education institutions have always faced and continue to face the same issues that have impeded their smooth operations, unlike their counterparts in Europe, Asia, and other regions around the world. The issues and challenges are not far-fetched. Inadequate funding, irrespective of the accreditation status. And funding has been a major constraint to higher education institutions in low-income regions of the world. Lack of funding continues to lead to poor compensation, lack of research innovation, faculty development, investment in infrastructure. In most instances, for publicly owned higher education institutions which the government funds, in the face of a declining economic outlook for most of our countries, government funding to public higher education institutions are delayed, or rather remitted in piecemeals based on the availability of funds to operate national budget wastelands. It's a problem. Then you have unmotivated and sometimes unqualified faculty, because not much has been invested in developing our faculty. And as Professor Red indicated, in most of our institutions, we have persons with master's degrees moonlighting here and there because we have not had access to the funding to adequately invest in developing our human resource capacity. According to the 2013 publication of the Chronicle of Higher Education, the average percentage of staff with PhD in public education institutions in Africa is estimated to be less than 20% of the entire workforce in our higher education institutions. And most of these individuals are even close to retirement. So where are we going if there's not adequate investment in human resources? And one thing that has been overlooked for so long is the inclusion of ICT in our curriculum. A number of institutions did not give much attention to establishing firm ICT solutions before 2019. And as a result, when the COVID pandemic came and hit us, most of our institutions were temporarily shut down because we were too familiar with the face-to-face teaching and learning methods in our institutions. As a result, we had to close down our doors. It's only now that a number of institutions are now paying some attention to ICT. That should have been done a long time ago. Professor Ray, Professor Foy, and audience, we cannot overlook the political influence and interference in quality assurance of our higher education institutions. It's something that we need to really look at. The management of higher education is a special area that requires seasoned technocrats and professionals with the academic pedigree to run those institutions. But what we see is the constant interference of the operations of both public, private, and even faith-based institutions. In public higher education institutions, the government meddle into the affairs of these institutions because they foot the bills. In the private higher education institutions, individuals or groups that owns the institution, they want to have a firm grip. They want to dictate what happens at all times. In the faith-based institutions where I serve,
When churches and religious groups control their affairs in similar way, they control their churches. Not even being mindful of the quality of instructional materials that are being given out to the students. If we continue on this path, where will we end up? We need to not just think about it, we need to talk about it and come out with solutions. I know I'm running short of time, but let me talk a little bit about the lack of research in our sub-region, in our institutions. Sub-Saharan Africa is the region with the lowest research capacity and output in the world. I'm not even sure whether our region contributes up to 1% of global research. But believe me, this region has the potential for tremendous growth in terms of research. The number of academic papers and research publications seems to be minimal due to the lack of research funding, lack of motivation. And as such, most higher education institutions do not contribute to social economic development of our societies. It will have to change. I visited Sierra Leone a few weeks ago, and I discovered that the young people in Sierra Leone are dying at an incredible rate as a result of negative vices in the society, including abuse, prostitution, and so on. Then I reflected on Liberia. What is happening to the young people? What do we have in our society? Nothing different from what is in Sierra Leone. Who is looking out and searching, researching for a solution to the problem? We have named them Zogos and Zogis. We've pushed them one side in society. We've turned them as good for nothing. But go to Legis and read the statistics. It tells you that about 60% of our population are young people. And these are the very young people that no one is asking the hard questions or doing the research to find out why are our girls not in school? Why are our boys not in school? Why are they in the ghettos? Why are they taking drugs? Why are they into prostitution? What is happening? Who is doing the research? And this is not just affecting Monrovia, it's affecting every nook and corner of our country. We need to sit down. There has to be funding in our respective budgets to support research. It's not a secret that the Ebola virus disease came in and swept through this region, especially the Mano River Union. Many of us don't even want to talk about what happened. COVID came. Can we now begin to form changes in terms of research? We find solutions to these common problems that affect our sub-region. I'm sure it is something that we can do. And that will mean we ought now to begin to think about establishing partnerships with one another. I'm happy the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sierra Leone is here. I'm happy Dr. Wilson has told us what he is doing at his university. I've learned from that. That he's relying on the Sierra Leoneans, the Nigerians, the Ghanaians, because there is a capacity issue in our country that seems to be worse than it is in other countries. And Professor Sam, I'll be knocking at the door in a few weeks because we need some help from one another. Dr. Nelson, I'll come knocking at your door next week Because the AME University needs to begin to partner with the University of Liberia. That's important. I'll be at your doorstep. And you know what I tell you, not the only. We need to begin to work together. And if we have to go to Harvard to partner with the Tubman University, we get to Harvard and partner with the Tubman University. No man is an island. You need me, I need you. And it is when we are together that we can build a better society. We need to begin to think about the market needs in Africa and how we can train adequate resources to meet the market demands in terms of labor. Why should we continue importing engineers from other sub-regions in Africa and not developing our own in West Africa? Or importing from other continents? We need to look at that. And then, sustainable financing cannot be overlooked. If we depend on the government, we're not going to get what we expect from government. Because the government has several other things to focus on. In the midst of revenue challenges, why the government will be willing to help and do the little they can do, we need to get on our computers and begin to write for grants, write proposals, and we'll get money out there to do our research work. If we continue waiting for the government, we will be disappointed. As higher education institutions, we need to come together. I see no reason why we cannot partner together in terms of research, especially that we have discovered, and we all know that research is the way forward. Research is the way forward. And as we think about research as a way forward, let's begin to think, and I'll say it over and over, about developing our internal capacity. Those with PhDs, they are retiring. They are going. And if we're not investing in the younger ones, very soon some of our institutions will be totally out of competent faculty to lead these institutions. I know moonlighting is an issue we need to tackle. We will tackle it one way or the other. So on this note, I just want to say thanks for having this.
Thank you, Dr. Arthur. So we now have Professor Adipala Ikwamo from the Roof Forum on. Prof, if you're there, we'd like to turn over to you for your presentation. We've allotted 5 minutes. One of our presenters is not here, so we can take 7 minutes, and then we'll go into our interactive session. Welcome to this conference. Thank you.
Let me start by the University of Liberia. All Liberians on this auspicious day. Critical that we reflect on where we are coming from, because that informs where we are going. So thank you very, very much. I was asked to contribute to the discussion on the role of higher education in the suffering and the challenges. And I submit for knowledge and innovation and advancement, and hence directly influences the countries or the region's competitiveness. In comparison to other parts of the world, this is where Africa is very weak. We are behind other parts of the world, and we must therefore make strategic decisions on where we invest. But for higher education to be effective and relevant, there must be strong horizontal and vertical linkages with other actors, including among Liberian universities and communities. Accordingly, for Liberia and other universities in the continent, one, we must put higher education at the services of development in Africa through strategies for evaluating capacities and curricula to meet the needs of national development aspirations. We must see that we are relevant to national development needs and for the targets for economic growth and particularly employment, which is a challenge. In this regard, we must link our human capital development to the needs of the labor market. Probably something easier said than done, but we must make the effort to monitor what the market is saying. We must fast track generating innovations for supporting economic development, while giving attention to rural transformation and advancement. There is therefore a critical need for us, higher education institutions and partners, to demonstrate the relevance of our university. There must be a deliberate link to communities and industry. And I think this is what the earlier speakers are alluding to. But equally important, we must ensure that the knowledge we generate inform policy and that we must be part of policy. There's a saying in the Quran that if the mountain came to Moses, then Moses has got to go to the mountain. Universities, we must be engaged policymakers in particular, and even reach out to the private sector for partnership. But this may be easier said than done. There are challenges. The first one is that we have a very high spiraling demand for higher education. With no consumerate increase in human capital, quality human capital to support them, to still them, need the infrastructure. So strategic decisions need to be made. Secondly, we have limited differentiation in our education. We tend to all put emphasis on degree training. We need to give more attention to pivot and community schools. This is something that when I visited Liberia, it was a unique. The community schools were excellent. The kids were happy. Then I got a feeling that you wanted to move away from that. Please strengthen those community colleges. But we have to address the issue of the increasing divide in education. The education program is now showing, if you want to see the divide in the development, look at the education. With basically the rural community being very, very highly marginalized. This requires strong policy intervention. I want to appeal to the policymakers and our vice chancellors. Let's make a deliberate effort to make sure that in our education, we don't leave anybody behind. Overall, we are very low labor productivity. Therefore, we must improve the labor productivity through skilling and science, technology, and innovation solutions to meet especially local, but also regional and global skills for creating opportunities and for increasing rural income and participating in the cash economy. To do this, we must strengthen partnership. Starting with Liberia, partnership among Liberian higher education institutions. We have a very good research system in Liberia. How are our universities working with the research system in Liberia? Part of the reason for founding the forum was to harness capacity that exists in the different universities in Africa, so that we use it for building the research capacity, for training the human capital, and providing opportunity to train in the different parts of the continent, so that the generation we train have a good understanding of our continent. They develop faith in our continent that we can actually do it. The Mozambicans have a saying that your neighbor will never feel your brother. You must do something yourself. And this is really the thrust that we are having at the forum, that we need to harness the capacities in various parts of our continent, in our university, to collectively build capacity for the continent. We must strengthen knowledge sharing and mobility across our continent, but also equally important. And when I came to Liberia, I felt there was an issue here. We must promote inclusivity. For example, in increasing the participation of women in higher education, but also for well-endowed universities to support building capacity for the less endowed. This is what your former president, the lady president of Liberia, challenged your forum. That this, in whatever you are doing, try have mutual support for those leading universities. And that was part of the reason why we are working to try to foster Liberian students in other universities across the country. That's why in Kenya, they are welcoming students to Liberia. We need to work together for that. Looking ahead, if I may conclude, the forum has worked with the African governments, and I want to appreciate the support that we have had from Liberia, both from the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Education, to come with 4 bold steps that we can use to strengthen the role of higher education. Underpinning this is building Africa's science, technology, and innovation capacity. We need to give emphasis to that. The second, I think this is also important to Liberia, is developing entrepreneurship skills among the youth generation. So you need to have deliberate policies at the University of Liberia on how the university interfaces with all those in the university and all the school youth to build them. The third, we will not deliver without a strong human capital base in our university. We must make deliberate investment to strengthen the staff capacities, but in so doing, increase the pool of women in Africa. Finally, we must work together to harness digital technology, whether for learning or getting into artificial intelligence. And this requires us mobilizing, having a collective voice to talk industry, talking to policymakers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me this opportunity to express those views and sentiments.
I'd like to say a big thank you to all of our panelists for being time conscious. We'd like to thank Dr. Ikwemo for joining us from wherever he is, and for the Uganda, from Uganda, and for the contribution you've made to this conference. We are still within our time, and we're proud of that. For the presentations you've had, I'd just like to recap key points, and then we can go into what I hope will be a very interactive session. And I'll run through them quickly. Quality assurance to make education relevant to national development and the diffusion of innovation. Discarding outmoded curricula and making them more relevant to our current realities. A mismatch between knowledge and skills. Inclusive education that cuts across all divides. Looking at how knowledge is produced in Africa, research and the need to form synergies for research across our universities, undue influence from wherever they come in higher education, whether it's government, institutions, private institutions, or faith-based hierarchy that tend to control education, faculty resistance to change, and the need to focus on data collection and research, culture of the youth to impose political culture, on universities without civility, the issue of funding, underfunding higher education across Africa, moonlighting of the faculty, human capital needs, human capital need development to make it relevant to the labor market, the knowledge generation, and the role of higher education to inform public policy, high demand for higher education, and the need to strengthen our community colleges, as well as strengthening higher education partnerships internally and externally. And lastly, building leadership skills in our university. We'll now open the floor for questions, comments, opinions, and contributions to this discussion. I see one hand up, and we'll go from one row to the other so that we try to capture as many as possible. Please be brief. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Philip Theo, and I come from University I have been working directly with Professor Relevance. There are a couple of issues that are here. Quality assurance it's a major thing. We see, I've been around universities for like 11 years now, and I've seen quality depreciate over time. There are students who will leave university now and basically or have degrees that they don't have the skill for. And it's a problem. It's a problem for the students because you spend 4 years of your life investing time and money into your education, and at the end of the day, you can't use that education for anything. So it's a problem with the students. Sometimes there's also, it may be also a problem with the faculty or the university as a whole. At the lower level, high school, teachers also have licenses to practice. At the university level, it's not like that. Can we have a system where we ensure that these teachers in our classrooms in the university are actually teaching what they are supposed to teach? That they have the skills they should have to get to the classroom. Another concept is the issue with institutional effectiveness. How do we measure if the university is actually achieving the mission for which it was established? Recently, at TU, we started brainstorming about setting up institutional effectiveness, where we measure student outcomes. Can we do that? Can we measure student outcomes? And so that we don't have students wasting their life in school or they leave schools, they can support or the exam.
Thank you very much. Please keep your comments brief. Yes. On the front row here, please.
Thank you for this very inspiring panel, Professor Sam. Let me give 2 footnotes and a question. First, I think it's evident that no government anywhere can single-handedly fund education anymore. And I think this calls for Plan B. How are institutions, trying to think about Plan B and C to generate and to have both educational but also financial sustainability? I want to share one experience, having lived and taught in Germany and in the UK and now in the US. Perhaps one way, one Plan B might be to think about what I would call alumni capital. Alumni capital and endowment. Having lived in the US for a couple of years now, I think the most stable universities are those universities that have endowment. I live in a small institution where we have 1 billion US as in, and where does this come from? Most of this comes from tapping into the alumni. It's a gold mine. And you need to do research. University of Sierra Leone, University of Liberia, that has existed for several decades. Find out where are the graduates from your institution. You will be amazed. They are all over the world. If you can pull them together, I'm sure you don't need the government for most of the things. So that's why sorry, I just wanted, I think this is very important. I'm also stimulated with the question about research. And I think this is very fundamental. I also want to just share one experience. I happen to be involved in a number of projects. Let me share just one example. I'm currently a project chair for a John Templeton funded project in the US. We're very lucky to secure $2.4 million US for Africa Center itself. And the title of our project is Engaging African Reality. And it was very intentional when I designed this proposal that no one in the diaspora would benefit, but for scholars based on the continent. We advertised this 2 years ago and had more than 200 proposals from different parts of Africa. It was shocking to me that no proposal came from Liberia, no proposal came from Sierra Leone. I actually pushed one of my Sierra Leonean colleagues and said, what is wrong? Where are Sierra Leoneans and Liberians? So it is time to wake up and build synergies and cross-fertilization. We can do it. We just need to look inside. Finally, sorry, I'm taking too much time. I think that money that is generated, going back to my first point, alumni gold mine, much of that money can even be used to stimulate research within universities. You don't need to have $1 million to do research, but you can create little funds for your faculty to do research. $1,000 US dollars can do creative research. So we must look inside and not wait for the government alone. So my question finally is, how do we resist relying on external funding? Where are our captains of industries? Where are our millionaires and billionaires? How can we turn them, to set their priorities right, to invest in human capital building?
Thank you, sir. We'll take one from over here.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for this very unique forum. Thank you so much. We have an NGO. Our organization is called STEAM, and we are promoting the science, tech, engineering, art, design, and math. Let me just give you two important quotes. One is, if you think education is expensive, try poverty and students. Another quote is, if you are rich and the people around you are poor, you are poor. If you are educated and the people around you are not, you are in danger. That is from Tanzania. The reason I'm saying that is, one of the questions I want to ask, where are we in terms of our spirituality? When we think about the pyramids of thousands of years ago, today research has been done where there is not one machinery that is able to perfect the precision of those pyramids thousands of years ago. And my question always is, how were they able to do this? I think it went back to their spirituality. And I think that these are one of the puzzles that we need to address in the area of education. The other question is the STEAM education. I thank you for someone mentioned that. The private sector and the buzzword I keep hearing is synergy. The private sector, we are in the trenches, in the slums, in the ghettos. We are working with the Zogos, the Zogis, and we're putting ourselves up our bootstrap. I was in, 3 years ago, I was in Paul Kagame and Macky Sall of Senegal. They had a forum in Rwanda called the Next Einstein Forum. Dr. Chris Nyang, one of our scientists, he was in Rwanda and he had an opportunity to speak. And he said he was looking around the world for trying to get funding because he had created a prototype for infectious diseases. And again, the question still is, how can we, where are we in terms of embedding, going back to the basics in terms of our spirituality? Thank you very much.
If there's nothing from our far left, then we take another comment or question from the right. And please be brief because we have only 10 minutes to wrap up this session.
Thank you very much, founder of National Graduate Mobile Bible College. I want to thank the panelists so much for this brilliant discussion. To be very brief, my frustration with African education is that we're going back to the slave trade. Those who made our forefathers slaves, they did that on the basis of morality and immorality. Today they are making us slaves again out of civility. You got all kinds of hooligans that put themselves together and they call themselves politicians. And they are doing everything contrary to every process of education, and we bow to them. Right now, on most of our radio, you got something they call simple English. And they speak social foolishness and they say simple English and they're spending money. So you who are educated, you want to, constrain yourself to learn how to use your vocabulary and all of that. The man speak anything and he can be anybody. So what's the challenge? What is the role model? What are we putting down our feet on that people will look at to say, well, to be that person? There's not anything. Where is the education? Our educated people develop research. When somebody go away to China and learn to come and do go, the environment in which that person learning about the earth science and all that is not applicable to Africa. Why the African scholars can put a course together that will be applicable and marketable to our setting? And we still talking about research in Europe. Why we can do research in Liberia on agriculture or other things, Sierra Leone, why the scholars can come together and do something that will be profitable to our setting? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take the hand over there. No? Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Yandi Kofa. I'm a former student of the University of Liberia, and I'm very glad to be a part of this forum symposium. Indeed, it will benefit all of us. So I hope we take the goodness out of it all. I'm just going to give a statement. I have a question. I'm happy about all the comments that were made from our panelists. And my concern was a little bit addressed, and I wish it would go further. As I heard about the issues, the fundamental issues of our society, which is the social, psychological, and other issues within our society that needs address. I want to say that with the years of work went through, those issues were affected and interrupted, and there's a need for rehabilitation in all aspects of our economy in this country, in our private sector, in our government, in our institutions. And it's my hope that every institution, be it a community college or universities, we put in some curriculum in the schools to make sure rehabilitation is done. Because someone cannot be progressive or someone cannot move forward without that aspect of rehab and understanding where they're coming from and where they're going to. I also want to thank Mr. Ikuma, who spoke specifically about the inclusion of women into our society, our government, and private sector. I wish everybody would pay attention to that. My hope is that there will be some groundwork for our social issues in our various areas of society. I'm glad also about the collaboration spoken about by Dr. Sarr, Dr. Arthur, Dr. Eliot, and Professor Wilson. My hope is that that collaboration will start very soon because we don't have much time. And talking about the youth in the street and what's going on in the society is a problem that can be solved. I want to thank everybody, and I also want to thank everybody about I'm talking about what we really need in this society and economy, mostly about the technical and social skills, because I worked with the Boston a few years back in 1990 and 1998, and I saw how it was very productive, and we need to continue such. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take one more question, and then we'll have 1 minute of closing remarks from our panelists and bring this session to an end. We'll take that before you. Please be brief.
I'd like to start by the presenter and the panelists. All of the points that they raised are very good points. But one aspect that I think they did not touch on, and I just want to highlight it very briefly, is the encouragement of African who went in the diaspora or in the West and learned by teaching. There's always the issue of, in my view, or maybe the issue of envy or jealousy, or not encouraging those who went to study and come. It could be the issue of payment is low, or it could just be when you come to welcome you to teach them. Because Dr. Nelson talked about somebody who comes by the university to go learn, but they came back and the university learned something to teach. They had to go to different institutions to teach. So we need to look at that. How do we encourage those who have learned, get attended degrees, to come back to our university? They didn't really touch that. I would really appreciate it if you can touch that. Another one has to do with the government involvement in our university. And Dr. Atta really touched on it. We need to look at it. It's a factor moving forward. How do we make our university independent? So that as we move forward, government cannot be meddling in the running of the university. It's an issue and it's a challenge that we need to look at.
Thank you very much. We'll now have 1 minute of closing remarks from our panelists, starting with Dr. Arthur, followed by Dr. Eliot Wilson, and then our dynamic presenter.
Thank you everyone for the feedback that we received. I'll try to work within the space of 1 minute. I have in my hand the list of licensed and accredited higher education institutions in Liberia, published on the 13th of January 2022 by the National Commission on Higher Education. This list shows that there are 6 higher education institutions that are public, owned by government. There are 9 of them that are faith-based, and there are 6 of them that are private institutions, a total of 21 licensed and accredited higher education institutions, which is good. With multiple institutions, the monopoly that existed several years ago breaks up. But how much input has the National Commission, the NCH, put in terms of regulating these institutions to ensure that the quality that is expected of them is what is expected? It's something we need to look at. And that takes me back to an earlier point I made about government interference. My dear, when you pay my salary, I do what you want me to do, because I need to feed my family. When government interference is minimal and professionals are given sufficient room to work, they will work. And I'm happy. I'm happy that since the appointment and confirmation of Professor Monterio, our current Director General, it seems as if this government is not interfering much as we had experienced in the past. And as such, the current Director General seems to be doing a whole lot in reviving the sector. I want to congratulate him for that. And let me publicly say I will congratulate the government for not interfering up until now. I hope they don't interfere later or go deeper into it. But then there is something that is bothering us. We have Nigerians, Ghanaians, Sierra Leoneans, persons from our sub-region. For one reason or the other, they had to leave the country for better opportunities, education opportunities, economic opportunities. Some migrated as a result of, intercultural marriages and all of that. They've gone out there, they've learned new technologies, they've been exposed to new philosophies, and after a period of time, they intend to return home. And as the last speaker said, we need to get to the point where that resistance is broken. And every Liberian should be allowed to come and contribute to the growth of the country, to the growth of the educational sector in this society. But this is the problem. Most of our institutions are compelled to follow the national laws, especially the labor law. Look, we're in the academics. There is no rule, there is no law that's written in stones. There has to be some level of flexibility. When you cap the retirement age for all public servants, workers even in the private sector, at 60, when individuals have gone and gotten experiences from several sectors, have learned several technologies, and they come back maybe at the point of retirement or so, and they will now want to impart knowledge to the next generation. We say retire at the age of 60. How do we retain our professors? How do we retain those individuals that are well experienced and ready to transfer knowledge that you will never find in textbooks? Perhaps there has to be some national debate around this. At some point in time, we need to look at the possibility of having some dispensation for those in the academics. Can we retain them over the 65, 70, 75, so that they have enough time to transfer knowledge instead of sending them away when we really need them? I'll start at that note. I got one day, I got spend your morning.
Maybe I give one sentences to some of the concerns people raise. The question of spirituality, we are all spiritual people, and in my case, I don't like to meddle with other people's spirituality. So I don't like to bring it to a public institution. Spirituality is a personal, private thing. I think people should keep it to themselves. You don't want to force your spirituality on other people. Second thing, people coming from away and coming, there's two sides to this issue. Many of them come with expectations. You come home, you want to be minister right away. You come home, you want to be president right away. You don't want to take some time. That has a wishy side to it. Then, of course, there are people here who are threatened by your coming. So you got to be conscious of that. They think you're taking their place. Nobody wants to lose his daily bread. You get the point, Professor? So we have to have a balance here. The final thing is inclusion of women in the academy, in the universities, and in the other areas of life. And some of the things I would say might be controversial. My mother was a housewife, so was my late wife. They didn't have too many ambitions. When women go to the workplace, they bring skills, they bring knowledge, they bring something special. And so when they're coming, we're looking for those skills. That's something special, that little oomph, we're looking for it. Sometimes it's hard to find that in some of the women who show up. They just want work. We're looking for skills, the ability to speak, the ability to write, the ability to be there consistently. We are afraid that people will take time off too much. That's something women should think about, not get angry about it because I said it. This is thing that people think, they don't say it. You don't want to come and every month you have a problem, or every week you have a problem, and you can't show up. If you're the executive secretary to the president, and you're not there all the time, that's a problem. People worry about those things. I'm not saying they should worry about it, but they do worry about it. So women should get together and brainstorm. What's the best way to solve this problem? Men are afraid that when we come, we will not come every day. And then the other thing is, you can't speak rough to a woman. She will cry on you. We the men, we know how to deal with one another. We cuss one another. I can't do that to a woman. And so when she doesn't come, I keep quiet. I'm afraid to speak. Because she might throw a tantrum. Or the women's group will come on me. And so some men just back off. Yes, some of us have passed that stage where we know that women have a definite place in the workplace, and we should encourage it. That's why I was talking about those higher degrees. If they're getting those higher degrees, they will get a higher position. There's a group called GIZ. Let me just give you this one. They come to my university, they want to do business with me, they're into diversity. Then I say, okay, not a single woman in Harper City has a master's degree, not a single woman. So where do I find these people to give them the big jobs? Vice president and dean. I'm not going to give it to BAs. So I ask them to provide small money so the women can go get their MAs. I've never gotten an email again. The people who do the big talk don't do the walk. That's the other problem. That's why women are not in the workplace. Most of us men, we got scholarships. somebody should provide those scholarships. And it can't always be government. The governments are struggling too. You heard the man giving the forecast. It's tough. It's tough. They don't just find money every weekend. And we are asking for more every day. And women have power. Let them use it to train women. Just like men used to train men only. Let's have women doing it. Thank you.
This is quite interesting. I think there are two points we have raised. Somebody spoke about how do we monitor that the faculty members actually are teaching what they're supposed to teach, and then institutional effectiveness, how is that monitored? I think that brings in the question of quality assurance. Each institution must establish a quality assurance office, whose responsibility, amongst others, includes making sure that faculty members teach what they are supposed to teach. And additionally, the Academic Staff Association, they are very, very important. They should not only be fighting about improvement in conditions of service. They work with the Quality Assurance Office because, as I said, the establishment of the Quality Assurance Office and to make sure that the officers in that department do their work, they must have the cooperation of the Academic Staff Association because it involves data collection, data processing, and to make informed decisions out of those data that is collected. So they should work with the Academic Staff Association, the Quality Assurance Office to make sure that quality is maintained in this institution. And for Prof, I think really you pose the question and then you give the solution. The endowment fund, that is the way to go. I think in our university, for example, our new chancellor, but the president has introduced himself as chancellor, so our chancellor has challenged us that we must reactivate the endowment fund. We have drafted the concept, given it to him, waiting for his input, and then we go straight to work. We have big the catalog of all people who have gone to the University of Australia. So we want to reach out to them to make sure that we leverage on Plan B as suggested. So some of the role of higher educational institutions is to produce the requisite workforce for private and the public sector. We must work together. We must work together to make sure that we produce the right people with the right caliber for our private and public institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The fact that we sat here patiently during the session and didn't think about food tells us how very important and how engaging our presenters have been. I'd like to ask you to give them a standing ovation and a big round of applause. Thank you, and thank you for your alertness. We'd like to bring this session to a close and inform you that further panelists will be discussing other aspects of our challenges and prospects for higher education institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one statement before we go to lunch. We have one statement before we go to lunch. Lunch will be served shortly. Please bear with us. We have in our midst Dr. Evelyn Kanakai, former Minister of Education, who will make a brief remark, and then we will go to lunch. Dr. Kanakai.
I would like to compliment the University of Liberia, all of them. But the last speaker that was talking about the women, I would like to seriously contradict everything you say, especially about mother and girls.
some of these people, I thought don't always develop this by now. You taught me about women like that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Canada. We can now proceed for lunch. Please remember the protocol. Delegates are downstairs. Official is in the VVIP lunchroom. Delegates downstairs. Official in the VVIP lunchroom.